I feel like I want to be silent and just kind of wave until people show up. Hello, with don't make assumptions about anything. So let me tell you what happened to me this morning. All right, so I'm on my way to the office, and I'm a psychotherapist. Aside from the badass stuff, and I'll get into that later. But it has to do with Mustang Monday, and I know today's Wednesday, so I'm not really driving the Mustang today. But a couple of weeks ago, when I drove up to the high desert to basically, I drove up to Victorville to get my dad in the seat of the car so that he could do some Mustang Monday videos with me. Meanwhile, while I was there, I asked my son-in-law to kind of look under the hood, just make sure she's doing good. She's got all of her fluids, the belts are good, the oil's there, whatever. And he shared with me, you need to get an oil change. So I'm not afraid of that. This car's 13 years old. I've had plenty of oil changes. I've been to plenty of mechanics, people that I trust. One thing it is that I do like to support husband and wife owned businesses. So that's how I was raised in, a family business. And so when I have an opportunity to support a, homegrown business, I will. And so right between my home and my office, there is a husband and wife owned auto shop. So I just stopped in on my way to the office to make an appointment to get an oil change on the Mustang, because honestly, my son-in-law can change the oil, and so can I have two son-in-laws, but I didn't want to bother them with having to take the time. And of course, it's just easier to take it to a shop and let them lift it up and drain the oil or whatever they do. So this is why I wanted to say, don't make assumptions about anything, and this is what happened to me this morning, which is sort of, it's humorous to me, and I had a good laugh over it. So I've never met this person, and I'm not driving the Mustang. So he assumed at first that the oil change that I wanted to make an appointment for was for my Ford Fusion, which he could see clearly right there in his parking lot, and then I just got out of. So I walked in and I said I wanted to make an appointment for an oil change, and we're scheduling the time on when I'm going to bring it, and he's getting my personal info. And then he starts asking me questions about the vehicle, and he says, "What's the make and model?" And he looks beyond me at my car, and he says, "Oh, I can see what that is." And I'm like, "No, it's not for that car." And I start to tell him, so he says, "What's the make and model?" And I said, "It's a 2006 Ford Mustang GT." So he's typing it in, okay? And he says, "Is it a convertible or is it a coupe?" "It's a coupe." I thought, okay. And then he looks at me and he goes, "And I'm assuming it's an automatic?" And I laughed and I said to him, "No, it's a manual transmission. If you're going to have a sports car, do it right." And of course, the young woman sitting at another desk behind him, she snickers because that was funny, because it was automatically assumed by this mechanic that me, a little old girl, would be driving an automatic Mustang. And to me, it's funny. This is my fourth Mustang, and all four of them have been stick shifts. I learned how to drive a stick shift when I was 16, and that's a fun story as well. But if you're going to have a sports car, and I did have, it's like my brother had encouraged me, if you're going to get a sports car, you've got to get a stick shift. You can't do the automatic. And so I've always lived by that principle. If you're having a sports car, you got to have the fun of driving it by making it a 5-speed manual transmission. So for me, it was really funny that this gentleman says to me, "I'm assuming it's an automatic." And it just prompted me to want to get on today and do this little live video to tell you out there, never assume anything about anybody, because you just don't know. Like, for example, even just a little bit ago, texting with a friend of mine about a business situation, a work situation. And, and I had another friend who had a similar situation. And of course, as a therapist and a coach, I work with people who are having, problems or issues pretty consistently. That's the nature of my business. And I know that your attitude will determine your success. So even your attitude about somebody else is going to determine your success. Now, I didn't walk out of this auto shop and say, and be all offended because the assumption was that I drove an automatic automatic transmission Mustang. No, I didn't get offended by it. But to me, it's like, it's funny, because anybody who knows me and knows my history knows that I've always had a stick shift. And so, but he didn't know that. He assumed that. Maybe because of my gender, and sure, I could have been completely offended by it. But here's the other thing. It's like, men and women we all have problems. We all have issues that we have to deal with every single day. And even earlier, you might have seen my post about the roses that are growing in my backyard. And I love them because they're a result of the rains that we have had recently. Now, I could have assumed also that those roses would have just popped up anyway had the rain not come. But there's a beautiful metaphor to a lot of these stories, is that don't assume something about somebody. So even if somebody is rude to you on the street, or they cut you off, or you go order a coffee and the person behind the counter is not exactly all that friendly, or it could be even bigger than that. You're at work and, maybe your boss is cranky and they kind of lash out at you, or vice versa. Maybe your employee has come in and they just don't seem like they're on their game today. Don't assume that you know what the issue is. Don't make those assumptions. The thing is that communicate, ask. When this gentleman asked me, actually he didn't ask me, he asked me all the other particulars about my vehicle. He didn't ask what color it was, or the or the license plate, which is fine, don't have to. But he asked me, what's the make and model? What's the year? What kind of vehicle is it? Then he assumed it was automatic. Like I said, it's just a metaphor for don't judge or make assumptions based on what you think, because it's not necessarily going to be true or accurate, which in its essence makes you inauthentic. When we assume things. So like if your employee comes in and they're not on their game, or heavens forbid, I'm sorry, I lost that one. They quit and don't even give you notice as to why they're leaving. You're assuming things that are now taking you down a very negative path. So get the clarification, talk to somebody, ask the question, communicate, clarify, what does that mean? And of course, this is a funny thing for me that this occurred. I had to make notes in my phone. Actually, I was making notes. It's like, don't ever assume something about somebody based on what you think or what your experience has been beforehand. And that's part of the Badass program. And this is not the promotion to sell anything. I'm going to start doing some more videos about what it means to be badass, at least in the terminology that I'm defining it. Urban culture has defined badass differently than it was 30, even 40 years ago. It's not a curmudgeon. It's not this nasty, unapproachable, angry individual who's just out to, kick some, what. A badass is now somebody who has a healthy mindset, who has weathered the storms of life and has survived them and isn't giving up. So I'm going to be doing more videos about that so that you can get some really good information and insight into what it means to be truly badass in today's culture. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure that you're aware of is never assume anything about anybody. Get clarification, ask some questions, and make sure that you're getting the facts straight. Because for me, it's hilarious to me that this gentleman assumed that my Mustang was an automatic, and it's not an automatic. Now I want to get him in my car. Oh wait, he's going to get in my car because he's going to change the oil. I might get him in my car to do a Mustang Monday. That's what I might end up doing, is asking him, hey, would you mind doing a video with me about a badass tip? Because it's funny. He was embarrassed when he made that assumption. And of course, the girl behind the counter, she snickered too, because I guess it's a common assumption that when a woman brings in a sports car, assume that she drives an automatic. It's like, I took this car to an event in Santa Monica a few years ago, and it's like it was valet parking. And so when the valet driver brought my car back to me, I think he was surprised that it was a woman waiting for the car. He was given the keys. He gets the vehicle, and he brings it to me, and he was shocked when he looked at me, and he goes, wow. And then he says, you must have really strong legs because that clutch is really tight. And I'm like, gosh, people, say women can drive stick shifts too. In fact, to quote Julia Roberts from Pretty Woman, women are better with those stick shifts because we have smaller feet. So stick shifts is fun. So don't assume that I'm driving an automatic. But that's the point is, don't assume things about people automatically. I learned this in sales as well, is that, you walk into a business and you want to do business with that person, whether you're trying to sell them advertising or you want to sell them, brushes, whatever it is you're trying to sell somebody. If they're rude to you and if they're nasty to you, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want you to ever come back. You don't know what had just happened before you walked in, or what kind of day they're having. So never make assumptions about anything. Get clarification. That's my tip for this Wednesday. Have a great day, everybody. I'm off to lunch and a couple of networking meetings, and I got a busy day, so I got to go. But look for Mustang Monday on Monday, and it's like we're having some fun with this whole badass. I'm going to start teaching you some other implementations about the program, and I hope that you'll come back and see me. In the meantime, have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's kind of mild, and it might get a little hot later, but I think it's supposed to rain on Mother's Day here, which is interesting. I don't think I've ever experienced it raining on Mother's Day. I'm Kelly Orchard, and I want you to be bold, be brave, be confident, be badass, and I will see you really soon. Have a good day. Bye.